Diplomatic uproar between China on one side and Canada and the U.S. on the other. A Chinese spy balloon somehow ended up flying over parts of Canada and into the U.S., a clear violation of airspace. Now, it was spotted over the state of Montana, where the U.S. has top secret nuclear bases. It's still up there, more than 50 kilometers above the Earth's surface. China still says the balloon is only collecting weather and other scientific data, but the U.S. military isn't buying that.
We are aware of the PRC's statement. However, the fact is we know that it's a surveillance balloon, and I'm not going to be able to be more specific than that. We do know that the balloon has violated U.S. airspace and international law, which is unacceptable. And so we've conveyed this directly to the PRC at multiple levels. And in terms of specific locations, I'm not going to be able to go into specific locations, again, other than to say it's moving eastward at this time.
Joining me now is Claudiu Popa, a certified information security expert and cyber intelligence lead at the NATO Association of Canada. Great to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Claudiu, let me ask you, China, is downplaying any kind of threat here. The U.S. is not moving to destroy it. What do you make of all of this?
Well, it's certainly reminiscent of a number of events that have taken place during a variety of Cold Wars that we've had in any time in the past century. I mean, you could go all the way back to Sputnik, when the Russians launched this innocuous radio beacon into space, and it just kept beeping, and it was just traveling around the Earth, and it terrorized everybody, especially in the United States. And more recently, we've seen, again, Russians buzzing Canadian airspace in the past decade. Just to test people's tolerance to that type of thing. So this may just be that type of event where, we just launch a seemingly innocuous balloon and we say it's a weather balloon.
But is it then a warning of sorts?
Well, it's certainly a test. In my personal opinion, I think it can certainly be a weather balloon. It can have barometric equipment on it. It could be recording weather data, but there's no one saying that it can't be both a surveillance device and something that records weather data. Either way, it was placed there intentionally, and yeah, it's probably there to test North American tolerance to that type of thing.
Yeah, and it's not just North America. We're now hearing that there's one in Latin America, that there's 4 kind of launched at the same time. So you got to think about the timing here and what if China's trying to say something, right? I think that's what I keep wondering. What are they trying to say?
Well, that's what everybody's wondering. And I think the way that North American forces, both Canadians and U.S. Responses, have been to not shoot it down, right? That you would expect that if anyone was panicking, if anybody was worried, it would get shot down. There's nothing easier than shooting down a humongous balloon. But it hasn't been seen as a threat. It's a lot easier to monitor it and see what it's doing and where it's going, and certainly where it's going to land and what transmissions it's taking part in, whether in fact it's receiving or sending radio transmissions, whether it shows any evidence of recognizable equipment. I'm sure it's fairly easy to fly beside it and X-ray the thing from a distance. But it's certainly an interesting event to watch, and something that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
As a show of force, perhaps, or as a test.
Claudia, we only have 30 seconds left, but I want to ask, we're talking about this because it was spotted in the U.S., but we now know, Canadian officials have said, that it did fly over the prairies, for example, Alberta and Saskatchewan. We were never told. Why do you think that is?
That's right. We were not told, and now we are being told that there might be a second incident of the same nature. So, I mean, certainly anyone can launch hundreds of balloons, but at the end of the day, we have to consider that this could be a safety risk. I mean, it's visible to the naked eye. It's in the airspace. It can be a threat to helicopters and airplanes and so on. And from that perspective, if it were on a flight path, it would most likely be taken down. Luckily, I think we can trust the authorities and officials when they say that it's not a threat to the population and is just being monitored for now.
Claudiu, the Chinese ambassador to Canada has been summoned by Global Affairs, to
Right.
answer some questions. I wonder how much that can do and if it's going to help, already chilly relationships between our countries.
I think there needs to be, we need some answers. We need to know whether there's going to be suddenly more balloons, 100 balloons, or is there going to be some control over the flight path of these things? Because again, it's one thing for it to have the argument of being a barometric device. It's quite another for it to be a safety risk to legitimately flying airplanes and helicopters.
Right. And when we think of a balloon, we think of a little balloon. We're talking about a balloon that's the size of three school buses. Like, this is a huge balloon.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's massive. Yeah. Claudiu, we got to leave it there. Thank you for your expertise. Claudiu Popa, certified information security expert and cyber intelligence lead at the NATO Association of Canada.